Right now, there is a desperate search for a baby boy missing from Savannah. Today, several law enforcement agencies are now involved, including the FBI.
Police believe 20-month-old Quinton Simon's body was put into a dumpster and then taken to a nearby landfill.
On Friday, our search teams at the waste management landfill found what they believed were human remains. This afternoon, the FBI lab in Quantico, Virginia confirmed that they are, in fact, human remains.
I'm here. I've been here every day since this. I am not running and I'm not hiding. And if something does come up that I am at fault, I will take myself to that police station.
New tonight, a Chatham County grand jury indicted a woman on 19 charges in the murder of her son, Quinton.
On October 5th of 2022, a 20-month-old boy went missing after vanishing from his home in the middle of the night in Savannah, Georgia. Police spent several days searching for him until they saw video footage of his mother throwing something in a dumpster the night before he disappeared. After 6 weeks of searching for this little boy, a piece of his tiny skull was found in a landfill mixed in with piles of trash, and his mother was finally arrested. But still to this day, she maintains her innocence and claims she has no idea what happened to him. This is the case of Quinton Simon. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you are new here. Before I get into any details on anything, I do want to apologize for the lighting in this video. I'm going to try to keep myself off screen as much as possible. Unfortunately, my ring light broke right before I started recording this video, and I want to get this video out there as soon as possible, so I'm just gonna work with the lighting that I have and record anyways. So again, I apologize for the horrible lighting. I'm hoping it'll be better for the next video, but the lighting doesn't really matter when it comes to what I'm talking about, so hopefully you guys will forgive me. But with all of that being said, today we are going to be talking about the heartbreaking case of 1-year-old Quinton Simon. If you do follow me over on TikTok, you might know that I've been following this case ever since the day that Quinton went missing, and I'll never forget how absolutely devastating it was when police announced that they found his remains in a landfill. After you hear some of the evidence that's in this case, you will see that not only did this mother take her own son's life, but she never really cared for him in the first place. I want to talk about the details and the days that were leading up to Quinton's disappearance, what we know actually happened to him on the day that he disappeared, and how even after all of these horrific details and even after this trial, this woman still somehow has several people supporting her. Now, I have a lot of things that I want to talk about in this video, so this video will likely be a pretty lengthy one. So grab some snacks, grab a drink, or prop me up while you're cleaning, and let's get into the details of this case and start talking about Quinton Simon. Quinton Oruda Simon was born on January 8th of 2021 in Hinesville, Georgia, to the parents Leilani Simon and Henry Moss Jr., who also went by Bubba. Before he was born, Leilani had another child that I will refer to as Z. And after Quinton was born, Leilani had a third child that I will refer to as S. The father of this child is named Daniel Youngkin, who also goes by Danny, and he began dating Leilani in 2021, shortly after Quinton was born. Leilani, Danny, and the 3 children all lived with Leilani's parents in their home in Savannah, Georgia. Leilani and Danny worked at the same warehouse and would often leave to work together early in the morning. During the day, the children were watched by the neighbor, Michelle. She usually had the children at least 5 times a week, even on days when Leilani and Danny didn't work. The relationship between Leilani and her mother, Billie Jo, was not the best. Now, Leilani had pretty bad substance abuse problems and had been arrested for theft in November of 2021. And because of this, she actually lost custody of both Z and Quinton. Billie Jo ended up retaining full custody of both children until the day that Quinton went missing. But for some reason, Leilani still lived in the same house as them and still cared for them just like she normally did. On September 7th of 2022, Leilani called the police and reported that her mother had assaulted her. Then, the following day on the 8th, Billie Jo filed for the eviction of Leilani and Danny. She wrote a letter claiming the couple had caused damage to her property and that no one was living in peace. Leilani ended up receiving this eviction notice on September 26th. On September 28th, the state of Georgia ordered Leilani to begin paying child support to her mother since her mother had full custody of both Z and Quinton. And this would require her to pay monthly payments of $150 starting on November 1st of 2022. On October 3rd of 2022, the babysitter Michelle notified Leilani and Danny that she would need to raise the babysitting amount to $200 a week. Previously, they were obviously paying less than this because she was not charging for the infant baby, but once the baby reached 6 months old, she required additional payment. Early in the morning on October 4th, Z, S, and Quinton were all dropped off at Michelle's house before Danny and Leilani left for work. They both clocked in around 6 a.m., but clocked out less than 2 hours later after Leilani was experiencing dental pain. They then went to the dentist where Leilani had a tooth removed and then ran some errands before returning back home. Around 4:30 p.m., the children were picked up from Michelle's house and they all went home for the night. On the morning of October 5th, Danny woke up and started getting ready for work. He tried to wake Leilani up multiple times, but she just wouldn't get up. So he told her that he was just going to leave for work and he was going to keep the kids at home with her so they didn't have to go to the babysitter. At 5:20 a.m., Danny texted Michelle letting her know that he would not be dropping off the children that day and they would be staying home with Leilani. He tried to be as quiet as possible when leaving the house that morning because he did not want to wake the kids up, so he just walked out of the door without checking on any of them. At 9:14 a.m., Leilani calls Danny and tells him that she woke up to the front door open and Quinton missing from his bed. They remained on the phone for a total of 21 minutes, which is the same amount of time it would take Danny to drive from their work over to their home. Police were not called before, during, or even immediately after this call to Danny. The neighbor, Michelle, received a text message asking if she had seen Quinton that morning because he was missing. She immediately went over to Leilani's house to see what was going on and noticed that Leilani was just walking around yelling she couldn't find Quinton. But she wasn't crying, she wasn't emotional, and she wasn't even looking for him. She noticed that everyone was just kind of standing around. No one was actively searching for him. No one was walking around the neighborhood, checking under cars, checking behind trash cans. And most importantly, no one had called the police. Once Michelle found out that no one had called the police yet, she obviously pushed for Leilani to call them right away. So she did. Police arrived at the house at 9:54 a.m. That is 40 minutes after Leilani realized that Quinton was missing. She told police that she last saw Quinton in his pack and play right before she went to bed around midnight. Then she woke up around 9 a.m. to find the front door was wide open and Quinton was missing from his bed. Police almost immediately suspected something was off about the situation because Leilani's emotions were all over the place, and not in a way that they would normally see when parents have children missing. While they were speaking with her, she would go from extremely emotional and crying to just completely calm and collected. She would 1 minute be crying so hard that you can't even make out her sentences, to then suddenly talking to the officers like it was just a normal day. Her emotions were constantly changing back and forth the entire time the police were speaking with her. Once the detectives got there and they walked inside of the house, they noticed an odor coming from Quinton's bed that smelled like vomit. They also noticed that there were stains on his bedding that appeared to be vomit. And when they asked Leilani about this, she told them that he had gotten sick from a cookie a few days earlier and she thought she cleaned it all up. Other than that, there was really nothing out of the ordinary in the house. There were no signs of forced entry and there was nothing else missing. When they asked Leilani if she had left at all that night, she originally told them that she did leave around 10 p.m. to run to Circle K to get some Orajel for her mouth. But she stated that after that, she was home all night before going to bed around midnight. She did almost immediately suggest to detectives that it's possible someone took Quinton from the house in the middle of the night. And when they asked who would want to do something like that, she immediately mentioned Quinton's father, Bubba. Bubba actually was questioned by police on this same day, but he lived over 2 hours away, he really wasn't involved in Quinton's life, and he had an alibi for that night. So he was immediately ruled out as a suspect. Hundreds of police and volunteers spent several days searching the neighborhood and the surrounding areas, but no one ever saw any sign of Quinton. So where was he? How does a 1-year-old boy just vanish? While everyone was searching the neighborhood, police were also looking a little bit more into Leilani, starting with her car. They ran her license plate through something called a flock camera system. A flock camera is generally set up around busy intersections to capture the license plates of the cars that are driving by. Police can use these cameras for many different reasons. For example, if someone flees a traffic stop and gets away from the police, they can take that license plate and track it through this system. So once that license plate hits on any of the cameras, it will immediately alert the police. They input Leilani's license plate into this system and found that she didn't just leave the house at 10 p.m. like she said, but she also left the house a second time in the middle of the night around 1 a.m. When she was asked about this, she told them that she did actually leave the house again around 1 a.m. She stated that she went to bed around midnight, but she woke up shortly after because of all of the dental pain she was having. So she decided she needed to go find someone to pick up some Orajel from. But since Circle K didn't have any Orajel, she stated that she went over to the Azalea Mobile Home Park where her friend Missy lived and picked up some Orajel from her. She stated that she was only gone for about 12 minutes, and when she got home, she checked on the kids and then went to bed. When they asked her why she never mentioned this before, she told them that she just forgot. She somehow forgot that the last time she saw her son was not at midnight, but it was actually around 1:30 a.m.
So last night, was there any chance that you were having some issues with your wisdom teeth and needed to go get something to ease the pain last night?
I did. I went up and got Orajel. That was right up there. I met her like at the end of Buckhalter Road, a friend of mine, because I don't have money to go and get some expensive over-the-counter. I don't have it.
And what time was it?
That was like, I got home at 1:25 a.m.
1:25.
I was gone for 12 minutes. You go on my 360, look at it right there.
There's some text messages in your phone. You guys can sample a bit of the phone.
Yeah.
To the phone. And there's a message in there. It's an outgoing message from you that says turning on 204, and that's at 10:40.
Yeah.
10:40 p.m.
Yeah. Yeah.
We didn't talk about that before. So what? 10:40 p.m. Where were you at 10:40 p.m.?
If I was turning on 204, I was probably going to go pay back or something. Pay back front from him. To be honest with you, I was going to go pay back the $20 front for him.
For who?
For Danny. Daniel, that's who King is. That's Danny. Whatever. He had $20 a week. I went and paid it back. Whatever. But he was awake at that time. He was up. He was awake at that time. Quinton had just went to sleep. He had stopped all the crying and all that stuff. And that's why I left, because he went to sleep at 10:30. You know, and it only takes 12 minutes to get to 204. If you take 16.
So that would have been important for us to know before. So that's what we have to understand everything. And you just, you have to be kind of an open book.
I wasn't
good or bad.
Yeah, it's not like I was trying to keep it. I'm trying to replay everything over and over, and I've been doing it all day. All day. I forgot about that. That was not on my mind. My mind is, this is where I went, this is what I did, this is the last time I see my son, and I need him here now.
And you mentioned he was crying a lot.
Yeah, he was done.
Was that abnormal for him?
No, it's not like crying. Like, it wasn't crying. He just, talking to himself, a constant baby talk. It's almost like he's singing to himself.
At this point, police were obviously highly suspicious of her, not only because of her drastic change in emotions anytime they spoke with her, but also because she never mentioned that she left the house twice that night, and that she had saw Quinton a little bit later than what she originally stated. Detectives were able to track pretty much exactly where Leilani was on the night of October 4th based on the locations that were pinged from her phone, where her car was seen on surveillance camera, and even the home security system that they had that logged every single time a main door in the house was opened or closed. Based on the locations tracked through her phone, Leilani left her house around 10:20 p.m. At 10:27 p.m., she is seen on camera arriving at Circle K and buys what appears to be 2 cans of natural light beer and then exits the store. At 10:32 p.m., she texted Danny from the parking lot saying, "Gonna run to 204, I guess." It's important to note that anytime 204 is mentioned, that is referring to their dealer who lived right off of that highway. From 10:45 to 10:55, she is stopped at this house off 204 before heading back home. During the time that she was at 204, Danny and Leilani were texting back and forth about how Danny was getting ready to go to bed and he really wanted her to come home so they could go to bed together. They texted back and forth until Danny's last message was sent at 11:01 p.m., presumably right before he fell asleep because there was no activity on his phone after this until he texted the babysitter the next morning. But the same cannot be said about Leilani. There was activity on her phone up until midnight, and then again at 1:02 a.m. when she opens and closes her camera app and flashlight. At 1:14 a.m., Leilani's phone is shown leaving her house and driving towards Azalea Mobile Home Park. She was gone for just 12 minutes before returning home at 1:26 a.m. Police also looked into the home security system because it kept track of every single time a main door in the house was either opened or closed. But before I talk about this, I want to discuss the living arrangements and the general layout of the home. Living in this house, again, was Leilani, Danny, the 3 children, Leilani's mother and stepfather, Billy Joe and Thomas Howell, and Leilani's brother, Paul Simon. Right when you walk through the front door of the home, the room that was likely a living room before was made into a large shared bedroom. To the right of the room, you can see a race car bed, and that is where Z slept. To the left is a couch where S slept, and towards the back of the room is a large bed where both Danny and Leilani slept. Quinton slept inside of a pack-and-play that was immediately to the right of the front door when you walk inside of the house.
From the front door, you're going to walk through the whole room, go through a door here that leads to a bathroom, and then you'll enter the dining room. From here, you have to go through this door to go through the kitchen, and then this door to go into a hallway, and then come down here. You can go up the stairs right here, or go through another door to the main, or I guess the master living room, and then another door to go to the master bedroom.
Now that we know the layout of the house, let's talk about the doors that were opened and closed on the night of October 4th leading into the morning of October 5th. It's important to note that there are 3 doors that can be used to go in and out of this house: the front door, the living room door, and the dining room door. At 9:41 p.m. on October 4th, the front door is opened and stays open. At 10:11 p.m., the front door is closed and then opened again. This timeline aligns with Leilani leaving to Circle K. At 10:22 p.m., the front door is still open and the dining room door is then opened and closed. At this time, Danny texted Leilani that Paul had just arrived home, so it's assumed that Paul was opening these doors. At 10:36 p.m., the front door is still open, the dining room door is opened and closed. 11:13 p.m., the front door is still open, the dining room is opened and closed. At this time, Paul and Danny were believed to be asleep based on their phone records, so this would have been the time that Leilani arrived home from 204. At 11:58 p.m., the front door is closed. At 1:02 a.m., the living room door is opened. This is the only time that this door was opened throughout both of these days, which I find very interesting. At 1:03 a.m., the living room door is closed. At 1:07 a.m., the dining room door is opened and closed. 1:10 a.m., the dining room door is opened and closed. 4 minutes after this, at 1:14 a.m., Leilani's phone is shown as leaving the house and driving over to Azalea Mobile Home Park. At 1:26 a.m., the dining room door is opened and closed. This was the exact time that Leilani's phone is shown as arriving back home. At 1:39 a.m., the dining room door is opened and closed. At 2:01 a.m., the dining room door is opened and closed. 2:04 a.m., the dining room door is opened. 2:36 a.m., the dining room door is closed. It is believed that Leilani likely fell asleep sometime after this because there is no more activity shown on her phone or throughout the rest of the house. At 5:44 a.m., the dining room door is opened and closed. This is what time Danny was getting ready to leave for work. At 5:47 a.m., the dining room door is opened and closed. At 9:22 a.m., the front door is opened. Now, this part is extremely important. Leilani claimed that when she woke up that morning, the door was wide open and Quinton was gone. But Leilani called Danny at 9:14 a.m., telling him this exact story, even though the door was not opened until 8 minutes after she called Danny. The front door, the door that Leilani claims was wide open when she woke up, was closed from 11:59 p.m. to 9:22 a.m. This means that it's absolutely impossible that the door was open when Leilani woke up, because we know that she called Danny before the door was opened. Based on all of this information, we can assume that Quinton was likely removed from the home sometime around 1:02 a.m. because that was after Danny fell asleep and saw him in his bed, and this was the only time that the door was opened until Danny left for work at 5 in the morning. And the door was never opened again from 5 until 9:22 a.m. We can also assume that it was Leilani who removed Quinton from the house because she's the only one in the entire house that had activity on her cell phone around this time. And it was also her car that was seen driving around Azalea Mobile Home Park. All of this information pretty much solidified the detectives' suspicions that Leilani was the one responsible for Quinton's disappearance, but they still had no idea what actually happened to him and where he was.
Yeah, I know you know what happened. I don't know what happened. I know you know where Quinton is. I don't know where he is. Right? I don't know where he is. And here's why I know, right? Because the story that you already told law enforcement, that you've got that story in your mind, and you've been rehearsing it quite a while. I mean, you were like spot on what you told the other people, right? And we've already analyzed that. Your 360, right? Your cell phone data, right? Where you've been, right? And there's inconsistencies who you talk to, right? No. Okay. Not that I'm into it. Okay. All right. So we know you didn't go to the Chevron station. That was on the Life 360. It shows where I pulled in and turned around. No, you didn't. But we know where you went. It shows where I pulled in and turned around. We know where you went because we have video surveillance. Yes, I understand that. Okay. And it's not where the Chevron is. It is. The Chevron is right next to the Leilani. Stop. I mean, seriously, the Chevron is right next to the Leilani. Stop. You've gone off this story for a while now, and I know it's not true. It is. Leilani. That's where we're not going to make any progress unless you're truthful. I'm being truthful. This is Chevron. This is Azalea. That's where I pulled into. I turned around. I was only gone for 12 minutes, and my baby was in that bed when I left that house. Leilani, calm down. We're not getting anywhere, right? We're going to get to the bottom of this. Yes. Right? But you have to be honest. I'm being honest.
Detectives eventually discovered that Leilani's car was seen on camera stopping in front of a dumpster at the Azalea Mobile Home Park, leading them to believe that she ended up putting Quinton into that dumpster. By the time they found out this information, it was October 7th, and when they went to go check the dumpsters, they had already been picked up by the trash truck and taken to the landfill. This means that if they truly believed that Quinton was in that dumpster and if they wanted to find him, they would have to track the truck that took those dumpsters, find out exactly where it dumped the contents of that truck, and then search through all of those piles and piles of trash. When detectives were first speaking with Danny, he fully believed Leilani, and he was supporting her on everything she was saying. He genuinely did not believe that she had anything to do with Quinton going missing. But over the week of speaking with detectives and them showing him all of the evidence that was piling up against her, he started to believe that maybe she actually did do something to him. Detectives explained that it was very obvious that Danny was struggling with his loyalty to his girlfriend, the mother of his child, and also thinking about all of this evidence and how it really makes sense that she was the one who did something to him. On October 8th, Danny agreed to help the detectives with a sting operation against Leilani. They rigged a hotel room with audio and video recording, and they also tapped into his cell phone and recorded any message or call that came in or out. Nothing really came out of this meeting though, because Leilani stuck with her story that she met up with Missy that night and she has no idea what happened to Quinton.
do you think may have happened?
Yeah.
We ain't talking a minute about what could have happened.
But we did. We spoke about it last night, and I have no idea what could have happened. I don't care about what could have happened. I want to know what happened.
So where's he at?
I don't know.
I'm sorry, I'm not trying to crush it.
No, you sat there and said, so where is he at? I'm getting picked up. Enjoy all the food I brought for you to eat. No. If there's the only person I'm sitting here wanting the love and support from that I thought would be on my side 100% is on the fucking FBI side.
I'm asking you questions so I can understand.
But how many times do you have to ask me the same question about the same time, just like the fucking FBI does?
Okay, so it's just like the FBI, but you don't talk to me.
Yes, I have. I just sat here and explained to you.
You just talk
I
to
told
me.
you about it yesterday too, about what I did. And you made me promise that too.
Okay, so you promised me with your pinky promise
Yes.
that you went and got Oreo.
And I went and got Oreo from Missy. I pulled in the neighborhood and I turned around and I went home.
You didn't go nowhere
I
else.
didn't go anywhere else.
You didn't do anything.
Nothing at all. Nothing.
Okay. Go smoke your cigarette. I love you.
I think what you're doing is you don't know that FBI in your head and now they got you over here questioning me.
No.
This is exactly what it is. Danny,
No,
this is one of the hardest times of my life and I did not need you to question me. I needed love and affection and support and somebody sitting there telling me that we're going to find him, that it's going to be okay, that they are going to do their job.
We're going to find him. We're going to find Quinton. They are going to find Quinton. They're going to find him.
I hope they do.
I do too. I really do.
And they told me that they still didn't have any leads.
They didn't have none?
Yep.
Makes sense.
What did they tell you?
That they didn't have anything they could tell me.
On October 12th, detectives spoke with Leilani again, but this time they made it clear to her that they knew that Quinton was dead and that they were going to be searching a landfill to look for his body. And when they told her this, when they told her that her son was dead, she had no reaction. She didn't react with crying, with anger, with frustration. She remained completely calm and didn't even seem shocked that her son's body was in a landfill. Now, Billie Jo, the grandmother, had a very different reaction. A pretty normal reaction for someone who just found out that someone they love so dearly is now gone forever. When detectives told Billie Jo that Quinton was dead and they were going to be searching a landfill for his body, she reacted with complete shock and horror. She was absolutely horrified and responded to the detectives with, "My baby is in the trash?" On October 18th, police announced to the public that they believed Quinton was dead and they would be searching landfill for his body. They also named Leilani as the main suspect, but did not arrest her at this point in time. The next day, on October 19th, Leilani and Billie Jo were seen having drinks at a restaurant bar called Stingray's. One of the waitresses that worked here and dealt with them stated, quote, "They were having a great time, like they didn't have a care in the world. They were drinking Patron tequila shots in the deck area, being loud and laughing. It's almost like they were trying to draw attention to themselves." I vividly remember this day and when all of this information came out because it immediately reminded me of another very famous case of a mother who went out to party while her child was missing. There is genuinely no part of me that can understand why they would go out to a bar and have some drinks after finding out this type of information. After finding out your 1-year-old son and grandson is now gone forever and they don't even know exactly where his body is, and you're going to go to a bar to have drinks. I cannot for the life of me understand that type of mindset. And we have to remember, it wasn't just Leilani that went to the bar, it was also Billie Jo, and I think a couple other people were there with them. But both of them went to the bar and were having tequila shots and were cheersing each other and were being loud. This entire situation is just so extremely odd to me. On October 24th, Leilani and her mother made a news appearance with WTOC, where Leilani said that if anything came up that she was responsible for this, she would take herself to the police station.
I'm here, I've been here every day since this. I am not running and I'm not hiding. And if something does come up that I am at fault, I will take myself to that police station. Every day that goes by is less tears and more anger, not knowing what's happening, if that's even understandable. You wake up every day angry, hoping that you're going to get a phone call, and that phone call just doesn't come.
We want something great to come out of this, but mostly we want him not to be found in that landfill. We want him found
happy and alive. We want him back in our arms, holding us. That's what we want. We're just hoping that he's in somebody's house and they're feeding him, and they are hoping that, you know, maybe they wanted a baby or couldn't have a baby. Maybe they thought they were his savior. But it's not. That's their best hopes at this point.
Throughout the investigation, she spoke with the detective several times, and throughout these conversations, she accused multiple people of abducting Quinton. The day he went missing, she suggested that maybe his father, Bubba, came to their house late at night and took him. But when police told her that Bubba was not involved, she then stated that she had recently noticed some random cars following her and driving past her house. She also even tried to place the blame on Michelle, the neighbor and the babysitter, stating that it was possible she abducted him since she always enjoyed spending so much time with him. Then, in a crazy turn of events, on October 24th, she tried to place the blame on Danny, claiming he was possibly the one who killed Quinton and dumped him in the dumpster that night, stating that both of them had access to the car and the car keys. Now, this actually might make a little bit of sense if it wasn't for the phone records, because none of this aligns with the phone activity from Danny and Leilani that night. It is very clear that Danny fell asleep shortly after 11 p.m., while Leilani was up pretty much all night until 2 a.m. This same day, on October 24th, Leilani texted one of the detectives, quote, "I'm not lying for Danny anymore. The reason why my story about Oragel and shit didn't make sense was because Danny told me to say that. He was the one who left. And my phone was in the car from my previous trip and his was on the charger. I was already smoking a blunt on the porch when I got done. Danny was already laying in bed. All the lights were off, and I glanced at the kids as I was getting in bed to go to sleep. That is why he took off. I am innocent of this. He is the last one to see Quinton. He is the one that texted the babysitter, and he was the one that wasn't in bed when I woke up for just a moment, and it was still dark, and he was the one who had the only set of keys to my car the morning of my son's disappearance." On October 31st, they brought her back in for questioning and to clarify exactly what she meant by her text message, to which she continued to blame Danny, stating that he also had access to the car that night, and that she was sleeping when Danny left the house. On November 18th, over 6 weeks after Quinton went missing, parts of a human skull were found inside of the landfill. The skull was immediately sent in for testing, but based on the very small size of it, police were pretty confident that it belonged to little Quinton. I want to take a moment to talk about how tedious all of this was to do, and I also want to commend the Chatham County Police Department for just never giving up on Quinton. I'm sure most of you already know this, but when a trash truck comes and picks up the trash, there is a large compactor that's inside of the truck. So when all of the trash gets dumped in, the compactor just smashes all of the trash down. Then, when the trash inside of the truck is then dumped into the landfill, there is generally a tractor that is moving it all around. So the trash that's in the landfill is either being moved around with a tractor, being ran over by a tractor, being ran over by other trucks. So the trash that's originally put inside of that trash truck is just completely shredded and destroyed by the time it's inside of the landfill. When they were searching the landfill, they already anticipated that Quinton's body would not be fully together and that his body would be in pieces. So when they found a piece of his skull, they knew that that general area is likely where the rest of his body was. So they mapped off a certain area on where his skull was found and they searched that part. And again, this was not an easy task. They were sitting there raking through piles and piles of trash. And we have to remember all of the trash that's in there also contains old food and old animal bones. So they had to sit there and rake and dig through all of this old food and animal bones with the hopes that they would find even the tiniest piece of Quinton. And again, we're talking about a 1-year-old boy here. His bones were obviously extremely tiny and hard to find. And unfortunately, only a few pieces of his body was found. His entire body was never found. On November 21st, Leilani is finally arrested and charged with Quinton's murder, concealing the death of another, and several counts of making a false statement. Billie Joe was also arrested on December 12th and was found in contempt of court, where she was sentenced to 10 days in jail. The exact details of this have not been made public, though, so I'm not exactly sure what happened here. Leilani went to trial in October of 2024, and it lasted a total of 10 days. She continued to maintain her innocence and claimed that there was not enough evidence to convict her of anything. Throughout the entire trial, she showed very little emotion to anything. Anytime others mentioned Quinton, or even at times that his remains were shown on the screen, Leilani remained completely emotionless. No tears, no crying, not even anger. She just sat there and calmly listened to all of these horrifying details, even looking bored in some parts of it. Everyone that knew Quinton and testified about him showed some type of emotion when talking about him. Even the police officer that found his remains absolutely broke down on the stand when talking about him.
Now, what were the numbers assigned to each of these bags?
Items 27, 28, 29, and 30.
Does this first image here depict the contents of the bag numbered item 27?
Yes.
And what are those numbers we see in the bottom right-hand corner?
In the bottom right, you see the FBI laboratory number, which is 2022-02600. It then says item 27, dated 11/21/22, and to the side, my initials.
Can you tell us what it is that we're looking at here?
This is the photo I took documenting the material as I received it. Upon later examination, I determined this piece of tissue to not contain any skeletal material.
Did you do any further examination of this particular item?
No, because as a forensic anthropologist, I don't examine any of the soft tissues, only the skeleton. So because there was no skeletal material present, I did not conduct any further examinations on this item.
The next slide, slide 2, this is item 28.
Yes.
All right, so this is the contents of another one of the bags?
Yes.
Can you describe to us what we're looking at here? What was in that bag?
Again, this is a photograph that I took just documenting the material as I received it. On further examination, I sub-itemized these numbers and examined the bones individually.
And so you did do further analysis of the contents of this bag?
Yes.
Slide 3 is item 29, correct?
That's correct.
And can you describe to us the contents of item 29?
Again, this is a depiction of the material as I received it prior to doing my additional examinations.
Slide 4, not a great picture, but is this item 30?
Yes.
All right, so the fourth bag.
Yes.
Okay. What was in that bag?
This is a combination of soft tissue and skeletal material as it was received by me.
What did it appear to you to be anatomically?
It appears to be a foot, including some of the soft tissue and the bones within.
The detectives and the police officers that handled this case all testified to the odd way that Leilani acted throughout the entire investigation. She often forgot to mention things or would change her story, and most importantly, her emotions would drastically change every time they spoke with her. The detectives also testified to the moment they found Quinton and how emotional it was for everyone there. Not only did the detectives show more emotion regarding Quinton, but they even had more respect for him than Leilani did. When they discovered his remains and needed to send them to the FBI for testing, they refused to just put him in a box and ship him to the lab. They did not want to leave him alone and ship him off like he was just an object. 2 detectives personally transported him from Georgia to the FBI lab in Virginia. They did not leave his side until he got to where he needed to be.
So we arranged for private transport for Quinton. No one felt comfortable FedExing him or putting him on any other way. So I wrapped the box and drove him to Macon, where I met another agent who is on our fly team. And I handed Quinton to Agent Keys, who took him to Atlanta and kept him secure until the next day, where he flew him on an FBI aircraft to meet the lab in Virginia.
Published the first image here. Can you describe to us what we're seeing here?
We had Scott Schumann and Jeff Allen were at the office with me for me to retrieve Quinton and to borrow Scott's work truck to drive him. We, three of us, had just a quiet time wrapping him appropriately, and we thought this would be a nice image to be able to give. It's what I gave to Leilani and Billy Joe when I told them we had found him in the landfill. But he is in that box. He's in the bags in the box, and we wrapped it in a black cloth, and then the flag.
Moving on to the second image.
That is Quinton in my back seat, how he rode with me on the way to Macon.
Detectives also discussed all of the phone tracking details, the camera footage, and the home security tracking, and a very important Google search that they found in Leilani's search history from just 2 days before Quinton went missing, when she Googled, "Is it common for a mother to have resentment or even anger towards her child because of the father or another reason?" Detectives also showed a video to the jury that Leilani recorded in the fall of 2022, just a few months before Quinton went missing. She is sitting in her car filming a video that's addressed to Danny and the children, but mostly Danny. And it is clear that she's planning on taking her own life after the video. The interesting part about this video is how she says a lot about Danny and her 2 other children, but when it comes to addressing Quinton, she has very little to say.
eyes that you have when you talk about Caitlin. I don't hear the love in your voice anymore. I don't feel the love in your touch anymore. And I definitely don't see the love in your eyes anymore. If you truly loved me like you claimed you did, you wouldn't have done all that. Even when I was carrying your child and hating myself every day, crying myself to sleep every night because you did not want to have sex with me. You did not want to love me. You just did not want me. And I wanted you. I wanted you. I wanted you more than life itself. But you've proven that it was only one way. That feeling was only one way. That love, that loyalty, it was all one way. You take care of my kids. Okay? You couldn't take care of me. You couldn't love me. You couldn't do me right. So please, for the love of God, do my kids right. And the kids running up at the river now, bye,
Michelle testified on stand that she often cared for Quinton and the other children at least 5 days a week, even on days when Leilani was not working. And sometimes they would even stay the night. Michelle stated that her and her daughters absolutely loved those children, and they never had any problems watching them or having them stay overnight. She witnessed on several different occasions the way that Leilani just didn't seem to like Quinton, even testifying that one time Leilani told Michelle that she just didn't have the same relationship with him as she did her oldest child, Z, stating that she hated Quinton's father and that Z has always been her ride or die.
You said that Quinton would spend the night sometimes. Would both the boys spend the night or just Quinton?
He stayed a handful of times. Quinton stayed a lot.
And why is that? Why would Quinton stay overnight?
Honestly, Quinton loved us. He was close to us. And I just felt like he would be better off at our house because there was a difference in the love she showed between him and Quinton. And I felt bad, and I would work, and my daughter would say, "Can we just get him, Mom, because this happened today?" And I would say, "Yeah, call her and ask her if he can stay."
Can you think of some examples of how the defendant treated the boys differently?
Well, she was working at Bojangles, and she had brought food home, and she fed Quinton loved food, and every time he seen a bag, he would want it. He's little. She would feed before she fed Quinton, every time. And I just thought that was strange.
So do you mean she gives food and make Quinton wait?
Yes, ma'am, absolutely.
She wasn't physically feeding.
No, she would give him the food.
Just give him food.
And he would eat, and then Quinton would be, whining and wanting it, and she would give it to him eventually.
Did you ever say anything to her about that?
I did not.
Are there any other ways that she treated the boys differently that you noticed?
Just by the way she talked to him. When she would, once in a while that she did come and pick them up, she would, grab them and he would hug her because he was close to her. I mean, you could definitely tell it. And then, Quinton, 99% of the time, wanted to stay with us, and he would start crying. Now, if Danny come and picked him up, it was different.
How did Quinton act if Danny came?
He would go with Danny. He wouldn't cry to stay with us. He loved Danny. He would, Danny would pick him up and he'd hug him.
Okay. Did Leilani ever talk to you about how she felt about the boys?
Yes, ma'am. She just, one time, and my daughter had more talks with her than I did. I didn't really talk to her that much. But she just said that she loved Quinton more. More than Quinton. And, I didn't question it. She's a crappy mom. I knew that. but I just never said anything to her. I would always call Billy Joe when I seen things that was going on.
Okay. Did she ever, in that conversation, did she explain more about, like, been through things with her?
Yes,
or anything?
that it had been her ride or die his whole life. And she did not like Quinton's father.
Michelle's daughter also testified to the several times that she witnessed Leilani treat Quinton terribly, stating she witnessed her push him to the ground on multiple occasions, push him into a pool with no floaties, and even smack him in the face. The entire time that Michelle's daughter was testifying, Leilani was just shaking her head and making faces to her lawyer, even at one point mouthing, "That's a fucking lie," while she was explaining one of the times that Leilani had talked about how much she disliked Quinton.
You mentioned that incident started with her asking or wondering how he could look so much like his father. What was her tone of voice like when she was saying that? I mean, she sounded happy, angry, sad?
She sounded angry.
Do you remember if you seem like a pretty mild-mannered person?
Yes, sir.
But if I asked you to tell me what it sounded like when she said it, would you be able to do that or not?
Yes, sir. You want the whole, just how she said it?
Yeah.
When I walked in, she was like, "Hey, I got a question." I said, "Yes." And she said, "How the F could Quinton look just like his daddy? I'm the one that gave birth to him." And I said, "I don't know, Leilani. I really don't know." She says, "He's been my number one since he was born, and Quinton's just sitting there and useless."
Anything else?
No, sir.
A very important testimony was from Missy, the coworker that Leilani claimed she visited in the middle of the night to get Oragel from. The funny thing about this is her name is Missy, but anytime that Leilani talked about her in the interrogation or even the sting operation with Danny, she always calls her Misty. Missy testified that she never saw Leilani that night, and she definitely did not give her any Oragel. She actually stated that she hadn't seen Leilani in over a month. This means that Leilani had absolutely no explanation for what exactly she was doing when she drove to the dumpsters at Azalea Mobile Home Park.
At that time, about how long had it been since you had last seen her?
I'm guessing roughly around maybe a month or so.
Roughly. It had maybe been roughly a month?
Roughly, yeah.
Do you remember telling them it had been like July of 2022 that you last saw her?
Yes.
Okay. And were you telling them the truth at that time? Was that accurate?
Yes.
Okay. And that was closer in time than we are now, right?
Right.
Okay. Was there ever a time where she came and met up with you in the middle of the night to get Oragel from you?
No.
No? Saying that never happened?
I'm saying it never happened.
No further questions.
On October 29th of 2024, a jury found Leilani guilty on all 19 charges filed against her, including murder, concealing a death, and making false statements. Her sentencing hearing was scheduled for November 21st. As I mentioned earlier, throughout the entire trial, Leilani showed very little reaction to pretty much anything. There were moments where she shed a few tears, but overall her demeanor was very calm and if not kind of bored in some moments. But there was a moment that we did see her uncontrollably crying. She absolutely lost it. But it didn't have anything to do with the horrific details surrounding this case. It didn't have anything to do with the fact that Quinton's entire body will never be found. It actually didn't have anything to do with Quinton at all. The one moment that we saw Leilani uncontrollably crying was during her sentencing hearing, where people were speaking on her behalf, talking about how great of a person she was. No sadness, no tears, not even anger when it comes to her deceased son and his remains being shown on screen, the horrible things that happened to him being talked about. No reaction for those things. But one person goes on stand and says she's a good person, and suddenly she's a sobbing mess. It's genuinely insane when you're watching the emotions that she has during her trial versus her sentencing hearing. It's a completely different person. And I'm honestly shocked at the amount of people that came to her sentencing hearing and spoke on her behalf. I get that she's family, but what about Quinton, and what about what she did to Quinton? What about the little boy that she threw away like trash? What about the little boy that she discarded with the hopes that everyone would just forget about him? What about Quinton? I'm not going to play a lot of the sentencing hearing because it's honestly just infuriating to watch. Every single person that spoke on Leilani's behalf spoke about what a great person she was and how she just made a mistake, putting the blame entirely on drugs instead of Leilani. But the insane thing about this reasoning is it doesn't even make sense. She had been actively using 3 specific drugs for a long period of time. None of these drugs would cause someone to randomly murder their son. And she had been doing these for years, so why would it suddenly cause a bad reaction out of nowhere? But let's say, for argument's sake, that the drugs did cause a sudden violent outburst that caused her to kill her son. Did they also make her throw him in a dumpster? Did they also make her lie to police and everyone she knows? Did they also cause her to place the blame on several innocent people? Is that why she still to this day has zero remorse for what she has done, even though she's completely sober now? No, none of that happened because of drugs. All of that happened because Leilani did it. She made the conscious decision to murder her son and then try to cover it up like it never happened. She is the one that hoped everyone would just forget about Quinton. She did this because she is a monster.
How do you know Miss Simon, Miss Madden?
Biologically, I'm her aunt, but I raised her about half of her life. I love her like she's my own daughter.
During that time frame, tell me what you remember about her.
Oh gosh. I've written it all out. I don't know if it's appropriate to read it now or later.
That's completely up to you. Whatever you gotta say it now.
This is the easiest. Obviously, I have a different relationship with Leilani. I know a different Leilani than what is depicted, than what is splattered all over everywhere. My husband and I raised Leilani for about half of her life. I was and am angry at the fact that drugs caused the tragedy to happen in our family. Drugs took Quinton and Leilani from us. Quinton will forever be in my heart, my thoughts, and loved by me, but his life, his body, his love will never be seen or fulfilled due to the influence of drugs. As for Leilani, her life will never be the same. This will never go away. Now, all of this said, do I think there should be consequences for Leilani? Absolutely yes. I do feel that she needs counseling. I do feel that she needs to complete a long-term multi-step drug rehab program. I do feel that she needs to complete multiple parenting classes. I've seen the difference that counseling and parenting classes have made for my sister. I know this isn't about my sister, but my sister affects Leilani. My sister, is definitely a better person, a better judge of character, and decision maker. I struggle to say jail time for Leilani because my heart struggles. My heart struggles to accept this as reality for my child, my daughter, my niece, my nephew. My love is never ending for her and her children, including Quinton. The loss of a child is the worst hurt anyone can ever feel. This will be a permanent imprisonment for her. It'll never go away. It'll eat at her the rest of her life. Whether she is responsible for this or Danny is responsible for this, it doesn't matter. She has lost her son. She has lost her 3 children. No matter if the other 2 are alive or not, she has lost them. And she will never be able to get over that, ever.
I know drugs has taken and had a huge impact on our entire lives. Even as Leilani's childhood, I failed her as a mom. I allowed addiction to take over my life at a young age. And you and your brother were just babies. And you lived with my sister. And I made sure you were okay. And through those times, it was still really hard on you because you wanted your mom. We might not be able to bring Quinton back, but he needs to come home. And we're all going to hold him one last time. I just want to make it better, Leilani, and I don't know how. All I can do is be here for you and answer every phone call. Talk to you and be there. Listen, really listen. I'm really listening. I love you, and we're going to get through it because I raised you to know that I love you unconditionally. And today I do not put conditions on that.
And you understand the sentence is what
Yes,
can be life without or life with. And do you think that Leilani is so far gone she should get a life without parole sentence?
No, I don't. Because I wasn't so far gone. I'm not. And I refuse to let somebody make me believe that I am. I may be too late for a lot of things, but I'm here today. I'm here.
So you're asking the court to impose a life with parole sentence, correct?
Yes.
Is she, you understand the jury has now convicted her of murdering Quinton with intent to kill him. Do you understand that?
Yes, I do.
12 neutral, unbiased citizens taking a cold look at the evidence have said that is what happened here, beyond a reasonable doubt. You get that, right?
Yes, sir.
In all the conversations you've had with her, has she ever taken responsibility for doing that?
No, she hasn't. But she has taken responsibility for her drug use.
I know that you've taught her to take responsibility for her actions, because when she says in the news interview, if it comes out that I'm responsible, I'll take responsibility. And she said that separately another time to the police. And I believe that that is coming from your upbringing of her. Do you think that's fair?
Yes, sir, I do.
Has she ever actually done it in this case, though?
No, she hasn't.
She hasn't admitted to you that she killed Quinton?
No, she hasn't.
She hasn't told you how?
No, sir.
She's said things to you about, well, I just don't remember, and I'm not sure, and I'm trying to piece it together, and things like that, right?
Yes, sir.
Do you understand that the evidence has just not been consistent with that kind of claim? Do you understand that?
Yes, sir.
That, evidence shows that she made this very calculated drive to the dumpsters, scattered rice cereal in her car, drafted a text message to Danny about what she was supposedly doing on that trip, getting Orajel, told a bunch of lies about it to the police, right?
Yes, sir. I watched the trial.
And none of that is consistent with her just not knowing what happened. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Okay. But even still, despite all the conversations you've had, and despite you being her mother, the person that she had to confide in, she hasn't even taken responsibility privately in confidence to you, has
No,
she?
she hasn't.
Is that frustrating to you?
Yes, it is.
Do you wish she would just come out and admit to you as her mother what
Yes. Yes, I do.
What really broke my heart about this sentencing hearing is that 5 people spoke on Leilani's behalf and only 2 people spoke on Quinton's behalf. 2 people, and neither of them were even directly related to him. The 2 people who spoke for Quinton were one of the detectives who handled the case and Michelle's daughter.
This is your opportunity to tell the judge what Quinton meant to you and how this has all impacted you. And I suppose your family more generally. So have you thought about what you would like to say to the judge about Quinton?
Quinton was like a little brother to me. Quinton meant a lot. Just seeing him smile every day, waking up next to him, he would stay at the house a lot. Missing him every day, not waking up to see Quinton, not being able to go get Quinton no more. It's a lot. My family loved him a lot. I missed him walking around the house with cheese in his hands saying bubbles. I miss him just lighting up the room. I missed looking at his little bow legs just run across the kitchen. Just hope he gets justice.
Let me ask you this, and this is not something that we've talked about before, but it does occur to me to ask you the question. If Leilani had just come to you and your family and said, look, I can't handle all three of these children, will you take this one? What do you think your mom would have said to that?
My mom would have took Quinton in a heartbeat. There would have been no hesitation. Quinton, it was like he was blood to us. It was a connection with Quinton. It was a connection with all the kids. But Quinton, my mom would have never said no or nothing. She would have just took him in a heartbeat if she could have.
On November 21st, Judge Tammy Stokes sentenced Leilani to life in prison with the possibility of parole, plus an additional 10 years for the false statement charges. Leilani Simon is currently incarcerated at the Arendelle State Prison in Georgia. But unfortunately, I do not think Leilani will spend the rest of her life in prison, as there is a huge chance she will be paroled someday. In my opinion, little Quinton did not get the justice that he deserves. Not only because his killer could possibly be released from prison one day, but because no one knows exactly what happened to him. And most importantly, his entire body will never be found and will forever be mixed in with trash. This little boy deserved so much more than this. And at the very least, the person that took his life from him should never be able to go out and live hers. Quinton Simon was explained as a very happy, sweet, and loving little boy. He loved TV remotes, phones, tablets, and the cartoons PJ Masks, Paw Patrol, and Dragon Tales. He would say thank you no matter what it was, even if he was the one doing something for someone else. If the music was on, he would be dancing, smiling, spinning in a circle, and clapping. He always gave everyone love and hugged their legs. Every time he did something he was proud of, he would come up to whoever he could and ask for a little fist bump. By the time I am posting this video, it will be around the time of Quinton's 4th birthday. Quinton would have been a living, breathing, 4-year-old little boy by now. He could have been starting school, making friends, and enjoying his life with his 2 siblings. But because of the actions of his own mother, Leilani Simon, Quinton will forever be just 1 year old. If you have made it to this part of the video, thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this entire case. And thank you for taking the time to hear about Quinton and what happened to him. If you like to watch these type of videos, please hit that subscribe button so that you can be notified anytime I post another video. And if you could like, share, or even comment on this video to show it any type of love, I would forever be grateful. Please do not hesitate to comment any and all opinions on this case. I absolutely love going through my comments whenever I can and interacting with you guys. And I just want all of you guys to know that I truly, truly appreciate each and every single one of you. I appreciate every time you comment on my videos, every time you like them, and especially every time you watch them. I cannot believe a single person wants to listen to my voice and is interested in what I even have to say, so I'm so grateful for you guys. But that's all I have for you guys today. I appreciate every single one of you for being here. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.